Hey, welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about a tool that will greatly help you expedite diagram creation. So if you're an architect, if you're creating and trying to express yourself through diagrams, a great skill you must have is the ability to create some sort of image that will represent what you're thinking of. And that's where diagramming comes in. Now, there are a multitude of tools that will help you create mind maps, that'll help you create timelines. Think of specific tools just to do that, but also perhaps better ways, right? So perhaps a framework that will help you create all these different kind of images utilizing code. Well, there is something just like that. It's called Mermaid, and in this video I'm going to show you how to utilize it, but also take a step further and how to utilize ChatGPT to help it create stuff for you as well, utilizing diagram as code with Mermaid. All right, this is very exciting, and I hope you're just excited as I am because I'm using it every day. Right, so let's get into it. Okay, so let's start really simply. Let's understand what Mermaid is. So this is the website, Mermaid.js.org. So Mermaid lets you create diagrams and visualizations using text and code. Awesome. It's JavaScript-based diagramming. Okay, so JavaScript is key here. And it renders markdown-inspired text definitions to create and modify diagrams dynamically. Right, so key points here: Markdown, JavaScript, and code. Right, so that's what we need to know. Mermaid is all about these things. The documentation that you're seeing on screen right now, let's just us know everything that we need to know how to get started. Right, so of course we can learn about how to get started here. You definitely should read the user guide if you want to learn in details. The best thing here, of course, is the snippets of code, and I'll tell you in a second why that is, but everything in here can be edited and seen right in a live environment here. So what we can do is click on the live editor page right here, and that will take us to a live Mermaid.live editor. What you're seeing on screen is something I created before. So I created this diagram yesterday, essentially, with the help of ChatGPT. So you can see how accurate it is in terms of information, and that was ChatGPT that helped me immensely. Not all of it, but immensely. And of course, in terms of representation, you can see how broad it is and how flexible it is for this particular kind of representation of a diagram, which is timeline. But what's really important here is the result. So this here is a full screen of what you can get and expect out of results for this code-based diagramming. Again, this is the image, same image you were seeing before, but just focused on the image. And as you can see here, for the timeline component of Mermaid, for example, the timeline is just one of the multiple diagrams that you can create by code utilizing Mermaid. But for the timeline, what you can do right here is, you can have an upper layer representing a specific segment. What I'm representing in this image right here is a timeline of technologies developed by humanity up until artificial intelligence. So think about that. And what we've done here is, of course, creating substreams of segments of breakthroughs throughout those main periods that I told the tool to create for me. And then just creating the tenets of very important technologies that were needed here for this particular diagram that I was creating. Now, what's really beneficial for all of this is, of course, if I go back to the live editor, is the code on the right-hand side here, or left-hand side here. So this code is something that I created with the help of ChatGPT, but also something that I try to share on my GitHub. So this is definitely something I pasted on my GitHub for anyone to modify, reutilize, and build upon if they so wish. But the beauty of this live diagram is, of course, if you change anything in here and auto sync is turned on, of course it'll try and attempt to modify and update the diagram live for you. But also it provides you with sample diagrams. And look at the list of number of diagrams that Mermaid can create for us. It's a long list of different diagrams that you can create it with it. So if I click on sequence, for example, it automatically filled it in here with a template of what a sequence diagram looks like in Mermaid. And of course, on the right-hand side, since auto sync is on, it created a diagram for me. Beautiful, right? So if I wanted to update it, well, of course, I can add more entries in here. Entry 2, for example. So this is another entry following whatever rules this particular piece of code here or piece of diagram can create for me. Now, since I don't know what kind of language I can use or what kind of text I need to use here in order to create a sequence diagram, I can click on docs. It'll take me to the sequence diagram docs, same page that I was originally when I showed you the documentation for it. Just on the left hand side here we get the diagram syntax, and of course we get examples of the codes. And remember when the beginning I said the code is really important and awesome to see here? Yeah, that's because they not only propose codes and the representation of the diagrams, but if you scroll down you'll see the syntax. And the syntax is really what we need, right? So we get to understand different ways that you can interact with the diagramming tool with this sequence here. And more importantly, they are templates, right? Templates for you to learn, but also for a tool to learn how to write something similar. So when I created my timeline example, I just came over here on diagram. I came over to timeline. I chose, hey, let's learn a little bit of what timelines in Mermaid can look like. So I looked at this piece of code. I thought, hey, perhaps this could look like what I'm trying to achieve, but just turned into the theme I'm trying to achieve. Sure, it looks kind of okay. If I scroll down a little bit further, you can see that we have the syntax code. That's brilliant because it's very generic. It's very descriptive in terms of every object that needs to be placed and how it needs to be placed. But if I scroll even further up, it'll tell me about the grouping of time periods, for example, for this particular diagram type, and it shows me what that would look like. So this really hit nail here for me, because it sparked something in my mind that I said, that's definitely what I want. That's definitely what I need to create the timeline that I'm envisioning. So I picked up this piece of code and I went to ChatGPT. So this here is my conversation with ChatGPT that helped me create that timeline. So I was very prescriptive. I'm using one of the GPTs I created, which is focused on helping with a particular subset of themes here. And what I asked for it to create, and this is very important, I'm giving you a template of a prompt that you can use. Now, the prompt template here was created with a few tryouts. So there was a bit of back and forth until I understood and I knew what kind of information I was looking for. But what's really important here, you can ask your GPT, for example, to create an equivalent code following an example that you're pasting within a block text, right? So descriptively tell the GPT that the kind of information that you want it to follow is constrained within a set of block. The block has to be defined by specific characters that you define and you tell it. I used double quotes, but it could have been square brackets, for example. But anyway, I used double quotes and I told anything under those double quotes will be the syntax that you must follow in order to create and generate an output for me. So I'm using the documentation from Mermaid, right, as my template to tell ChatGPT, hey, use this template, create something similar to this template for me. All right, so I'm kind of teaching it, not really, but kind of telling it to be constrained under that particular format. I've also been really prescriptive on what kind of information I want on the output. So I told it, hey, I need you something similar to this, but also I told it utilize the web and your database to check for accuracy for the particular theme that you are creating, which is a timeline of technologies developed by humanity. For each entry, ensure that the information has credible sources. So that's very important. So I was telling it, hey, create the timeline for me, use credible sources, utilize the web and your database, but hey, do not make anything up. That's essentially what I'm telling you. Now, there was a bit of back and forth. The first result was a JSON file. I specifically asked for a JSON file, and that was not correct. So after a few back and forths, it actually came up with something extremely useful. This here was the section where I actually realized, hey, the better format is exactly the one that has the grouping available. So this is exactly what I told it. Hey, rewrite the subpoints such as the example right here. And so it created for me one of the last versions of what came up to be the final version of the diagram. So this greatly helped me accelerate the creation of that diagram. With this kind of back and forth, it would have taken me 5 minutes to do so. I was able to create that timeline, and that's amazing, right? Because otherwise, if you're utilizing manual tools to do that, well, it would take you hours to first do the research, right? So that took care of the research for me, or part of the research, because I reviewed it a little bit further. And most importantly, as part of the research, it told me the sources, right? So these here are the sources that it looked to create all the diagram. And that's very important because I'm able to pick back to a particular set of information there in order to tell it, hey, the information would have come from here. And at the end of the day, you can get something similar to this, right? So an image that is of high quality, and then of course you can get to share what reference links you were used as part of your research assisted by AI. Okay, so hopefully you found the content useful. I know that it's really useful for a large scale if you're trying to scale your diagramming and the creation of visuals for your documentation. And if you do want to see and learn more about what kind of tools are helpful to help you be a better architect, be a better cybersecurity professional, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe because that helps out. All right, with it all set, see you next time.